Good afternoon and welcome to General Services Public Works Committee. It is September 11th, 2023, and we are here in the library community room. I will call this meeting to order. Today we have 3 items on our agenda, with the first item being a request for approval of change order 001 with La Riviere for the C2 sewer line project in the amount of $95,467.25. And with us today is the utility project manager, Larry Parsons. Welcome.
How are you? So as you may know, we have Mullen Avenue tore up for a sewer project. We're looking for approval of change order number 1. We had to do some rehabilitation to some storm work down there after the fact. The plan was to protect and retain that storm water. Couldn't be done, so new had to be put in, 4 catch basins and about 350 feet of new storm pipe. So as you can see, the budget for this was $1.6 million for the total project. La Riviere was low bidder at $1.88 million, 1.088, and that left about $511,000 in the budget after that. And we're looking for $95,467.25, making the contract $1.184 million. So we're looking for approval of this change order. Any questions?
So we'll have a remainder of $415,000.
Yes,
about $416. Yeah.
Yeah, right, correct.
If this is approved today.
Yes.
Madam Chair, maybe you could just go into a little bit of detail about the consequences if we don't do this.
Boy, I don't know what the consequences will be if we don't. The stormwater had to be put back together, and we did, so it actually improved the system down there. It was very dated, old concrete pipe and brick catch basins. Now they're all preformed, prefabbed, and PVC pipe in there. So it saves from going back and digging the road up again. And it only made sense. We tried to retain and protect, but we were so deep with the new sewer line through Mullen that there was nothing we could do about it.
Sure, thank you.
And I made it perfectly clear to La Riviere in the beginning, we do not like change orders, so this one was critical, as it turns out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Okay, I have no questions, so I would make a motion to recommend that council approve change order number 1 with La Riviere Inc. for the C2 sewer line project in the amount of $95,467.25.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank
Awesome,
you.
thank you.
Moving on to item number 2, this is a request for approval of amendments to Personnel Rule 26 and Personnel Rule 27. And with us today is Melissa Tosi, our Human Resources Director. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I have just a few fairly straightforward personnel rule amendments here, specifically having to do with our exempt salaried employees. The first one is in the department head section, and it is specific to the vacation accruals. The department head section of the personnel rule was created back in 2004. And at that time, the city was trying to extend some of our accruals. And so when that was implemented, the department heads were put to a 15-year accruals stretched out to 15 years. So they would max at their 20 hours at 15 years, where all of the rest of our employees max out at 10 years for 40-hour-a-week employees. So the goal with that at the time was to try to get the other employee groups to extend theirs as well. So the department heads were kind of leading by example at that point. Over the years, through negotiations, vacation has been discussed a lot, and we've never been able to make any of those movements extending the other group's vacation accruals. And so we've gotten to the point that it's been 20 years that the department heads have been at a 15-year max, and it has created some inequities. So for example, we have newer department heads that earn less than the employees that they're supervising. Or we'll have an employee that is currently in the city that's promoted into a department head position, and they're allowed to stay where they're at, so they may be earning more than a department head of equal years. So we had the discussion in executive team about the vacation accrual, since I was bringing forward another amendment anyways, and it was proposed that we change that to match the rest of the employees. So that is the first proposal. And then the next one has to do with the actual compensation of our sick leave repurchase. So that's a benefit for at the end of the year, when employees meet that criteria, they could be paid up to a week of their sick leave. And so right now for our exempt employees, they get paid in just a normal check, so it's taxed. And so the proposal with that change would be to not change the benefit at all, but just change how it's paid. So instead of receiving an actual taxed payroll check, that contribution would go into their HRA VEBA plan. So that would help them save those funds for later. And then the only other change has to do with the designated COLA, the cost of living adjustment. So right now in the personnel rules, it's set at 2.5%. And it was changed 5 years back when LCA negotiated for a 2.5% increase annually for their 5-year contract. So instead of coming forward to council every time LCA negotiates a cost of living adjustment, we thought that we could just propose it to approved by council, and then whatever that increase is that council approves through the budget process would just be what the exempt employees receive. So those are the three main amendments that have to do with our exempt employees. There's no costs associated to any of the amendments. The contribution into the VEBA for the sick leave repurchase will actually save some taxes, Medicare and Social Security, but no increases. And with that, happy to stand for any questions.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Melissa. We've had some just conversations offhand about how important it is to make sure that our exempt employees in administration is not, that they're not dealing with the compression that we've been concerned about. And I think the last time we chatted, just informally, we had talked about maybe some sort of a salary study to look at our administration, see how comparable we are, and if we're within market, and if not, how do we need to adjust it. So I hope that that's still ongoing. The things that are proposed, I'm not personally against, but I do think that it shouldn't probably be on a consent agenda because it is a personnel change. And the third bulletin that deals with the COLA really should probably go to council for discussion. Personally, I don't have an issue with what's coming forward, but I think it does warrant a discussion from council.
Sure, no problem.
I agree, okay. But it's not, yeah, I mean, they're all reasonable things, but, yeah, wouldn't hurt to have the full discussion.
Yeah.
And I want to just commend you for taking a look at the equity issues. I know in my outside job, that's always a challenge to keep up on that and stay on top of it. And it does directly impact the culture in the workplace. So thank you for staying on top of that.
So then, Madam Chair, I guess the motion would be just to remove it from the consent agenda, but bring it forward?
Well, we'd
But
go ahead and make the
there's
motion to recommend to council, and then we'd pull it off consent and have it as an agenda item on the council agenda.
Okay. Let's see, I don't have my glasses. I'll make a motion to recommend council approve amendments to Personnel Rule 26, appointed officers and department heads, Section 5, benefits, vacation accrual, and compensation for sick leave. Personnel Rule 27, FLSA, exempt employees, Section 5, benefits, maximum sick leave, accrual, and cost of living increases.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I had one more question. On the ability to use the sick leave to go into the FLSA, which is a great thing. I think I did that before I retired. Or maybe I didn't. People did. Is that available to a lot of the employee groups? I haven't done a deep dive on their contracts for that section. Are they, a lot of them taking that option?
Great question. The only group that has agreed to do that is the Lake City Employees Association. So the IRS regulates the HRA VIBA criteria, and there's no option allowed. So it has to be the entire group or none of the group.
Okay.
So LCEA a few years back had decided to use that compensation method for their sick leave repurchase to go into VIBA, but they're the only group that has agreed to do that. The other groups have discussed it through negotiations and just never got an overall agreement to move forward and do that. We're allowed to do that. The exempt employees obviously don't fall under a represented employee group for negotiating, but we're allowed to do that as long as the group as a whole agrees to do that. Like, we can't allow department heads to have the option to either get paid their sick leave repurchase check or have it contributed into the VIBA. It has to be all or none. So when we talked about it in executive team, the department heads were unanimous that they would like to have that contributed into their VIBA. And then the rest of the exempt employees, it was 87% that they would prefer to also have that contributed into their VIBA. So as long as there's a majority, we can move forward with it.
Okay,
We just
thank
can't
you.
allow the option. And then just real quick on your other question on the salary structure, we have that with Ameriben. We're just waiting for a quote on what that would cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll add it to the council agenda. Thank you. All right, our final item today is a request for approval of a contract with Thorco for installation of conduit and fiber to Atlas Waterfront Park in the amount of $85,793. And with us today is Renata McLeod, our Municipal Services Director.
Thank you. Yes, this is an item we don't get to talk about too often, but it is very important for our future and current operations. So, as you know, we have the Atlas Park has been completed. As you can see on our map, there's a pink line, it's kind of a little hard to distinguish from the red, of conduit that's already in the ground. And it goes to the parks building down in the park. And it's been our desire to bring city fiber down into there. It would allow us to get some cameras and run some other equipment and give us a lot of options. However, there was a big red line here that was missing to connect in to where we already have some existing city fiber that needs to be completed to complete the loop to get us all connected in. We've been working on this for a few years. We've thought we had a few solutions, some partners in crime. Our water department was going to be doing a line on Celtice, and so we said, let's jump in with water and let's make this a dual project. Once they have the ditch opened, we can throw in our conduit and make it that much more cost efficient. And then the water department had time to change of plans. They changed their contractors. As you recall, they did a termination for convenience of their agreement with their contract, La Riviere, at the time. They needed to get in a certain part of the line to meet their summer demands of water. So they limited their project scope and hired somebody else to do it and cut out our fiber section of the project and the conduit that was included in that. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board. Thorco was already on board to be a subcontractor with La Riviere. So we were able to work directly with Thorco on what plans they already had. And that we could get a good deal to work with them one-on-one rather than as a subcontractor and have some up costs to that. So I have some partners in this. Todd in our streets department is an expert on this stuff, actually used to work with Thorco, so we had a good knowledge base on the inside. We've talked several times about how to most efficiently lay the conduit in the ground. And now we have a less expensive option to kind of bore in the middle of the street. It would not tear up the street completely, but have some special equipment to get it done quick and efficient. And I will have Todd come up and maybe talk a little bit about that process.
Good afternoon. I am pleased to say for council to know that when we started out on this project, it was looking about $160,000. We've been back and forth on the drawing board, tried to come up with a good plan. I think we have, so I'm really pleased with the number. About 5 years ago, we installed fiber here to this stoplight from the 911 center. If you remember, it came all the way up Ramsey onto Northwest Boulevard, and then it goes all the way down to La Crosse currently. So we have city fiber there. Out this direction, we don't have a lot of fiber that we can tie into, and we have some facilities that need it. So we have determined, instead of boring underneath Northwest Boulevard here, we found an extra conduit and a signal system that we'll be able to tie into. We can grab that pipe, and instead of boring, originally the first price was to bore all the red that you see here. That's very expensive. So now, because of how water had to change their water line, what ITD is committed to with the widening of I-90 through this section, we have some room that we can do what they call plow in the conduit. So you're not drilling under a road, you're dragging the pipe through the ground. And we can do it just from the curb line within 10 feet of the curb all the way through this section. So that cost to install the pipe through this long section here, it's probably cut in half. We were able, through this process with water not being able to complete, come up with something a little more reasonable. There will be, every 500 feet, we'll put a hand hole or a junction box that we can pull more fiber in if need be. When we get up here to Riverstone, again, instead of boring across Saltese, we're going to use one of the empty conduits that's in the signal system to cut that bore out of the price. And then we will plow along this, we're actually about to put a trail that ties in from the Prairie Trail up to Saltese. The street department's about to pave that. We'd get this conduit in front of that so that we don't tear it up. Right here where I've got the mouse located right now, we'll change out, there's a vault there right now. That is what was put in with the Atlas waterfront. We will change that vault out to be a little bigger, and we'll put a splice enclosure in there. So that would be the point that we can feed down to Atlas, or to get to Coeur on Atlas Road, water wells for the water department. Again, instead of boring all the way up Saltese, we would come from this point and head down the Prairie Trail, where we would plow in conduit, because there's a wide shoulder there in the future. It's not part of this project, but it gives us a great path to get out, on the other side of town. So that, hopefully we would be able to get the fiber all the way down to this point here, put a splice, and then from that point, we would hire a contractor to pull the fiber all the way down to the Atlas Waterfront Park. We have already got conduits in place down there to put cameras and everything. We've just never had the fiber to install. So as far as that portion of it, I would take any questions on that. As far as the build out, I'll let Renata handle the rest of it. But
We're partners in this.
Madam Chair, thank you. Todd, the timing looks great for all these projects coming together. And the cost that you've mentioned, that's great. How long do you project into the future that direct path of fiber will service us going west?
so we do build out for future. So we're putting in 72, they used to call it strands, but fiber tubes. So that's in the fiber we're pulling. I'm not sure, to run a stoplight, we use two. to do the park. I'm sure we're gonna use probably 2 to 4. You want that path in and a path back out. So we do share some of it with the county because they let us use their conduits as well, and then we'll let them use ours. It's a partnership that we have throughout the city. But really, the size of fiber we're pulling in, I think that is very long-term. I mean, that's gonna last for many, many years and be more than sufficient for anything that we would need out on that northwest corner or anything like that.
And who's in charge of that, I would just call it strategic planning, to make sure you go up and over toward Coeur eventually? Is that your office that's in charge of that?
It's not my office, it's our folks in IT that really look to build that out. As Renata pointed, I've installed a lot of this, so I'm very familiar with it, so I've been helping them. I've installed thousands of feet of this, and so I'm very familiar. Renata and her team reached out and asked me to help with this. Originally, when we first talked about this, just so you know, we looked at going along Celtice, heading west, but the stuff we need is more north of Celtice. It's very expensive to install it along Celtice, so this is a much more cost-effective route, and it's going to get us to everywhere we need to go. There's a big water tower out there where we can put radios, antennas up there, so we can get the fiber to there, and then it can look pretty much anywhere throughout the city, another water tower, or even the tower that's just up here north of Sherman. So I think it's a long-term. This isn't short-term. This is very long-term. Fiber lasts forever. So, I mean, I think to answer your question, this is a long-term install.
Great,
And if I
thank you.
can add to that, it's really that big team effort, right? So when we're at executive team, all the department heads are around the table. When they start talking about new city facilities, that's when we get real active about, okay, what are you putting out there? What are you gonna need out there? Do you need fiber? And they have to start building it alongside their projects. And so with this opportunity to go up along the trail, it's a lot less expensive than boring down the street. We can use that same system that we're talking about this way, so it's a lot less expensive to install. But I believe probably one of our largest partners is always gonna be water, because they're gonna want some facilities along the way as Coeur is developed, and then parks. So as they figure out where these pocket parks are gonna be, and bigger parks, and water storage tanks and things like that, then we get a little more active about, okay, now, where do we need to be and when, and who's gonna pay? Because municipal services doesn't have a fiber budget, so we kind of budget along with the other projects. So that's why this was really a team effort to say, okay, you know, we really have had this need. We thought we had the finish line in our sights, and we we're so excited to get it done. And then this now, Thorco, is ready to start by the 15th of this month and could be done by the end of October. So it's really one of those, finally, you know, we can see the finish line for this one section. But yes, there's lots of opportunities to twist and turn as we decide where our city facilities are gonna be.
Sure, and Madam Chair, one more follow-up. You're probably just about to get to this, but you brought up who's going to pay.
Yes.
So did you want to go through the budget?
Yes, we didn't get to that part of the staff report yet, but we do. Zero. You know that easy.
And I'll still have a nuts and bolts question, so.
Okay, then I will stay right here.
Okay, so we did have some funding from Ignite. It was about $31,840 left of that. We used a little bit of it to help us kind of identify where some potential conduit was. Didn't end up working out, but you know, we had to spend some money to try and figure this all out. Streets Department has about $20,000 budgeted for signals that could go toward this. We do connect into their boxes. And the Water Department had $60,000 to $80,000 budgeted in their prior project. So we put them in at 60 because that was about where we needed for this budget. That totals the line item of $111,840 available. So while this project is only estimated at about $86,000, we need a little extra pot to finish the splicing at the ends of each part of this project. So the actual connecting the fiber into the computer equipment. So we'll need a little bit to go toward that one. Unfortunately, this sped up so fast, we haven't gotten a new estimate from the 0DB or other companies that do that kind of business, but we think we can fit it into this budget.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, and I don't know if you'll have the answer and/or maybe Troy, but when you, I mean, getting to that new vault and then coming down along, and actually from if I'm wearing my Ignite hat, it seems like we keep running into resistance. There's supposed to be a bike path down there, and there's been trouble or a slow walk with the neighbor of getting that right away. I mean, is it gonna come down that bike path? So
there's
are
a-
these related or?
I'm not sure as to which bike path, from where the
Well-
cursor is right now.
I think he's talking about in the
There's
neighborhood.
that. As far as in the neighborhood, we're looking to get fiber at these two buildings that are in this area so we can get cameras out on the poles and
Yeah,
stuff.
and
or
how
whatever.
where would you bring it down from the vault?
So
south?
they already with the project, this pink line that's harder to see, they did install
Oh, it's in.
conduit all the
Okay.
way up to there already.
Okay.
So that's already there. It's just got a string in it right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the fiber in it.
Okay,
In
but at
this
least-
price-
okay, that's
In this
there.
price, we'll get fiber all the way down to those two buildings. And then what Renata was speaking to, we just have to pay someone to splice it. We don't do
Right,
that in-house. I might add right now, it's a good learning moment because I've been in construction for 37 years and I've done this kind of work. The first thing that always seems to get pulled on these projects, just taking while I'm here to explain, is always the conduit and the means to get that one piece of the pie that no one ever sees at the end. It costs probably double to put it in after the fact, so it always costs money up front. And then, for our IT department to find the money to put the conduit in, I mean, it's something that I've always argued along government way through the years. We should have put pipe in
Yep.
from intersection to intersection. So it's just, this has worked out. We were able to save some money this time. We've been lucky, but yeah, that's just me on, I know Renata thinks the same
To
way,
the
so.
choir.
Well, in this day and age, you can't have too much connectivity
Right.
or options for the conduit, and it's always way more expensive to add on to something after the fact, so this is it, I mean, needed, terrific, so, but if you still want to talk a few dollars and cents or something, go ahead.
Well, that's the total budget. That's what I got. So we'll stand for any further questions.
Well, I appreciate you answered my question with the budget summary, so thank you. And thank you for all your collaboration and so many moving parts. So, thank you.
I'd be happy to make a motion then to recommend that council approve a contract with Thorco for installation of conduit and fiber to the Atlas Waterfront Park in the amount of $85,793.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And that is our last agenda item for today, so meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you both.